Welcome to Eyes on Earth Docs. San Diego, a name that conjures images of sun-kissed beaches, palm-lined boulevards, and postcard-worthy vistas, is to many a coastal paradise. Tourists stroll through the Gaslamp Quarter sipping iced lattes, families pose for photos against the backdrop of La Jolla's shimmering coastline, and the city's marketing slogans promise effortless living under eternal sunshine. But just beyond the lens of vacation selfies, a very different reality unfolds. Beneath overpasses, behind supermarket dumpsters, and along sidewalks only blocks from high-rise condos, thousands of people sleep in tents, cars, or under blankets on concrete. Their presence is often reduced to an inconvenience, their stories rarely told. This is San Diego's other face, the one not found in brochures or real estate ads. A city of beauty, yes, but also a city of quiet suffering. In recent years, homelessness in San Diego has surged to crisis levels. The numbers are stark, but the human cost is even more profound. Grandmothers, veterans, children, all caught in a system that seems designed to forget them. The juxtaposition is jarring. While tourists pay hundreds for a night in a beachside hotel a few blocks inland, entire families sleep on the streets. This report seeks to go beyond the headlines, to trace the root causes, to examine the policies, to confront the myths, and perhaps most importantly, to listen to the people themselves. Because in understanding what San Diego has become, we might begin to ask what kind of city we want it to be. To understand the magnitude of San Diego's homelessness crisis, we must first look at the numbers and then look beyond them. In 2024, the homeless population in San Diego County surged to over 17,300 individuals, a staggering 32% increase in a single year. It's not just a statistic. It's a sign that what was once a social concern has become a systemic emergency. Since 2013, the homeless population has risen by over 50%, and there's no sign of that growth slowing down. English auto-generate. But the most alarming number isn't how many are homeless. It's how many are unsheltered. Nearly 70% of San Diego's homeless residents live without any form of emergency housing. They sleep in cars, tents, alleyways, and doorways, exposed to the elements, vulnerable to violence, and invisible to much of the city. This is the highest rate of unsheltered homelessness in the nation. English auto-generate. Chronic homelessness is also on the rise, with more than 14,000 individuals now experiencing long-term housing instability. Many have lived unhoused for years, trapped in cycles of trauma, illness, addiction, and bureaucratic failure. For them, the road back isn't just long, it's often blocked. And then there are the children. Nearly 29,000 minors in San Diego experience homelessness every year. Many of them bounce between motels, shelters, or cars, or worse, live in unsafe or overcrowded conditions that don't even meet the federal definition of shelter. For these children, the consequences are lifelong. Disrupted education, mental health issues, and a sense of rootlessness that lingers into adulthood. These numbers, as sobering as they are, likely underestimate the true scale of the crisis. Point-in-time pit counts conducted on a single night each year can't fully capture the transient and hidden nature of homelessness, especially among women, youth, and undocumented individuals. But what's impossible to ignore is the visibility. In San Diego, homelessness isn't hidden. It's along the sidewalks of downtown, near the convention center, in the shadows of luxury hotels and office towers. It's in parks where joggers run past tents. It's in the vacant lots across from restaurants where patrons dine al fresco. It's everywhere, and yet somehow still treated as if it were nowhere. This is not a fringe issue. This is the front line of a humanitarian crisis unfolding in real time, in the heart of one of America's wealthiest, most picturesque cities. When many people think of homelessness, a certain image comes to mind: the weathered man pushing a shopping cart, the figure asleep on a bench wrapped in tattered blankets. But these images tell only part of the story. The truth is far more complex and far more human. In San Diego, the homeless are not just strangers in the shadows. They are people we pass in grocery stores, sit beside on the bus, or once shared a classroom with. They are workers, veterans, parents, grandparents, each with a name, a story, and a point at which their life began to unravel. Seniors with nowhere to go. One of the most quietly growing segments of San Diego's homeless population is older adults. Many are in their 60s or 70s, individuals who spent their lives working, raising families, and contributing to society. Some lost their homes due to medical debt. Others faced rent hikes they couldn't afford on fixed incomes. Now they sleep in their cars or line up for shelter beds with walkers and prescription bottles in hand. Imagine retiring after decades of work, only to spend your final years moving between parking lots and shelter waitlists. Veterans forgotten by the system. San Diego is home to one of the largest veteran populations in the U.S., and with that comes a painful truth. Many of them are homeless. After serving their country, some return to civilian life with untreated PTSD, chronic injuries, or addiction. Promises of housing assistance and medical care often fall short. Instead of support, they find red tape. Instead of recovery, they find the street. For too many, a life of service has ended in a life of survival. Families one crisis away. Contrary to the stereotype, many homeless people are employed. They work as janitors, cooks, security guards, childcare providers. But in a city where rent for a one-bedroom apartment exceeds $2,800 a month, a single missed paycheck or medical emergency can push a family from the edge into the streets. Some families live in their cars, rotating between Walmart parking lots and gas stations. Others crowd into single motel rooms, unsure how long they'll be allowed to stay. For the children, stability is a luxury, school becomes a blur, and the idea of home becomes abstract. Youth, women, the invisibly unseen. Thousands of unaccompanied minors and young adults experience homelessness in San Diego. Some are fleeing abuse. Others have aged out of foster care with no safety net. Many avoid shelters, fearing harassment or violence. Women, too, face unique risks. For many, the streets are dangerous places. Sexual violence, exploitation, and fear are daily companions. Some trade safety for silence. Others hide, making their homelessness harder to see and even harder to help. To look at the homeless crisis in San Diego is to look into the faces of our neighbors, our coworkers, our parents, our children. They are not statistics. They are people who, in many cases, did everything right until one moment turned their lives inside out. Understanding who they are is the first step toward understanding how to help. To truly address homelessness in San Diego, we must stop treating it as a mystery or worse, a moral failing. Homelessness is not random. It is predictable. It is the result of systems that have been designed or neglected in ways that make housing unaffordable, support inaccessible, and survival exhausting. San Diego is one of the most expensive cities in the United States. In 2025, the median home price reached nearly $950,000, and rent for a modest one-bedroom apartment exceeds $2,900 a month. These numbers are not just out of reach for the poor, they are now unaffordable even for working-class families. English auto-generate. The problem isn't just price, it's supply. San Diego needs over 96,000 affordable housing units just to meet current demand. But most new developments cater to the wealthy, luxury condos, vacation rentals, and mixed-use buildings with only token affordable units. Meanwhile, restrictive zoning laws, slow permitting, and community opposition stall affordable projects for years. The result? Housing has become a commodity, not a right. And those who can't keep up with rising costs are left behind not because they failed, but because the system priced them out. In a city where basic costs of living are sky-high, groceries, childcare, gas, healthcare, many people are just one unexpected bill away from disaster. A car repair, a hospital visit, a reduction in work hours, and suddenly, even full-time workers find themselves sleeping in their vehicles. Many San Diegans are what economists call cost-burdened, spending over 30–50% of their income on housing alone. What remains is barely enough for food, transport, or savings. Living becomes a juggling act, and the smallest disruption can bring it all crashing down. Homelessness doesn't begin with addiction or mental illness, but once someone becomes unhoused, those challenges often spiral. Living without safety, stability, or sleep erodes mental well-being. Trauma builds. Self-medication becomes a way to cope. Isolation sets in. Nearly 45% of San Diego's unsheltered population report serious mental health issues. 36% struggle with substance use. And yet access to long-term, affordable care is rare. Clinics are understaffed, services are fragmented, waiting lists are long. Recovery is hard to reach when basic survival comes first. Even when help is available, navigating the system can feel impossible. Housing applications involve endless paperwork. Appointments are missed because buses don't run on time. Agencies don't coordinate, so someone needing therapy, medication, and housing might get only one or none. Policies often criminalize homelessness through anti-camping laws or sweeps that destroy tents and belongings. But punishment is not a solution. It's a diversion, shifting the crisis from one neighborhood to another without fixing what's underneath. And too often, political will follows public image. San Diego pours billions into shelters and services, but without accountability, funds disappear into contracts, consultants, or projects that never materialize. In some cases, money meant for emergency housing is used to beautify tourist zones or appease business districts. Homelessness in San Diego is not the result of individual failure. It is the result of collective neglect. It is a housing problem, yes, but also an economic problem, a health problem, a political problem, and ultimately a moral one. Homelessness is not contained. It spills into every corner of the city, into neighborhoods, parks, transit stations, and business districts. It shapes the way people move through public space, the way they perceive safety, and the way they view one another. The consequences are not limited to those without homes. They ripple outward, touching everyone. In San Diego, visible encampments along sidewalks, underpasses, and near schools have become part of the urban landscape. For many residents, these scenes provoke discomfort, and for some, fear. Parents worry about their children walking past tents. Business owners say customers are deterred by the presence of people sleeping nearby. This fear, though real, is often misdirected. It focuses on the visibility of homelessness, not its root causes. And it can lead to policies aimed at erasure, sweeping camps, fencing off benches, or banning people from public spaces, measures that displace but do not solve. Some point to rising crime as a consequence of increased homelessness. In 2023, San Diego reported over 100,000 criminal incidents, with both violent and property crimes reaching record highs. English auto-generate. But correlation is not causation. The relationship between homelessness and crime is complex. People who are unhoused are far more likely to be victims of crime, theft, assault, exploitation than perpetrators. Yet when public disorder increases, it becomes easy to blame those who are most visible, most vulnerable, and least able to defend themselves. In truth, homelessness and crime often share the same roots: poverty, trauma, addiction, and systemic neglect. Criminalizing poverty does not reduce crime, it deepens despair. Perhaps the most corrosive consequence of homelessness is social division. As encampments grow, frustration does too. Some residents call for stricter enforcement, more police, and tougher laws. Others demand compassion, investment, and reform. The result is a polarized city, where empathy and anger collide on neighborhood message boards and city council floors. This division isn't just political, it's psychological. It erodes trust. It fosters othering, the sense that unhoused people are somehow less deserving, less human, less worthy of space. But cities that respond to fear with force don't become safer. They become harder, colder, more unequal. Homelessness in San Diego is not just a humanitarian crisis. It is a social stress test, revealing the city's values, its priorities, and its capacity for collective care. The question is no longer whether we see the crisis. We do. The question is what we're willing to become in response to it. San Diego has not stood still in the face of homelessness. Over the past decade, the city has launched numerous programs, declared emergencies, and allocated billions in funding. But the results remain mixed, shaped by competing visions of how a city should respond to crisis, through enforcement or through empathy. In 2023, San Diego enacted a controversial ordinance banning public camping if shelter beds were available. On paper, it promised safety and order. In practice, it punished poverty. The reality was that there were not enough beds, often fewer than one for every 3 unsheltered individuals. Yet police began issuing citations and conducting sweeps, clearing out encampments, discarding tents, blankets, and personal belongings. For those affected, the trauma was doubled. They lost what little they had and gained nothing in return. These actions were often driven not by compassion, but by complaints from businesses, residents, or developers eager to reclaim public space. In this model, cleanliness becomes a higher priority than care. The goal isn't to house people, it's to make them disappear. In contrast, Housing First approaches homelessness as a housing problem, not a moral failing. Instead of demanding sobriety, compliance, or paperwork as a condition for help, it begins by providing a stable home, then wraps around services like therapy, addiction treatment, and job assistance. San Diego has piloted several such programs, with promising results. Tiny home villages, transitional housing, and permanent supportive housing projects have helped thousands find stability. But the scale is far too small compared to the need. For every person housed, many more remain on the waitlist. Bureaucracy and neighborhood resistance continue to slow progress. Communities protest shelters near their homes. Zoning laws restrict development. Funding is fragmented. Without strong political will, housing first remains an ideal, not yet a reality. Much of the city's most effective work comes not from City Hall but from the ground. Organizations like PATH, Father Joe's Villages, and dozens of smaller grassroots efforts fill the gaps left by government. They offer meals, medical care, shelter referrals, legal aid, and perhaps most important, human connection. Their outreach workers build relationships slowly, patiently, often with people who have been failed too many times before. They don't ask for perfection. They offer presence. And in a system that often pushes people out, that presence can be the first step back in. San Diego's response to homelessness reflects its own internal conflict between image and empathy, policy and humanity, convenience and justice. The city is learning, sometimes painfully, that homelessness cannot be managed by force. It must be transformed through care. Homelessness is not just a policy failure. It is a mirror held up to the values of a city, a nation, a society. In San Diego, that reflection is painful. How does a city so rich in natural beauty, tourism, and innovation allow thousands to live and die without shelter? How can a place known for its perfect weather and postcard skyline tolerate so much human suffering in plain view? The answer isn't simply budgetary. It's philosophical. What do we believe people are worth when they have nothing left to offer us? For decades, our systems have valued profit over people. We've built luxury condos faster than shelters. We've zoned for development but not for dignity. We've designed cities for cars, not for care. And in doing so, we've drawn invisible lines between us and them, the housed and the unhoused, the deserving and the forgotten. But cities are not just buildings and roads. They are moral projects. They reveal who we protect, who we abandon, and what we choose to see or ignore. If San Diego wants to be more than a destination, if it wants to be a community, it must confront not only the symptoms of homelessness, but the mindset that allowed it to grow. Because the real question is not just, how do we fix this, but who do we become if we do? San Diego's homelessness crisis did not appear overnight. It was built year by year, decision by decision, through neglect, misplaced priorities, and the silence of those in power. But what has been built can be rebuilt. The path forward is not easy. It will take more than funding. It will take vision, courage, and the political will to choose people over optics. The foundation of any solution must be housing not as a reward but as a right. A stable, safe place to live should not be reserved for the privileged few. It is the cornerstone of dignity. This means expanding affordable housing projects at scale, reforming zoning laws to allow for more mixed income and supportive housing, using public land for housing, not just for profit. It also means removing the red tape that makes applying for housing feel like navigating a maze. Housing alone is not enough. Many people need wraparound services, therapy, addiction treatment, job training, childcare. These must be accessible, coordinated, and trauma-informed. That includes mobile health units that go where people are, low-barrier shelters that allow pets, partners, and dignity, outreach workers with lived experience, people who understand because they've been there. This is not about charity. It's about infrastructure for human well-being. San Diego cannot end homelessness without addressing its mental health crisis. That requires long-term mental health treatment centers, consistent funding for street-level crisis teams, shifting from police-only responses to public health-led interventions. Healing is not possible when survival is the only focus. People need space to rest, recover, and rebuild. Homelessness is not just a government problem. It's a community responsibility. We all have a role. Voters can support housing-first policies. Businesses can fund local shelter efforts. Neighborhoods can say yes, not just not here. Individuals can volunteer, donate, speak up. Compassion is not weakness. It is the hardest kind of strength, the kind that builds something lasting. There is no single fix, no miracle law or perfect shelter. But there is a path paved by decisions rooted in dignity, equity, and care. San Diego can become a city that does more than shine. It can become a city that holds its people close, all of them. We've seen the tents, we've heard the stories, we know the numbers. There is no more pretending this crisis is invisible, no more comfort in calling it someone else's problem. San Diego stands not at the edge of collapse, but at the edge of decision. One path keeps us circling where we've been, more shelters, more sweeps, more suffering hidden behind progress. The other asks something harder. It asks us to reimagine who we are to each other. Are we the kind of city that hides behind gates? Or one that opens its doors? Are we built for image? Or for inclusion? Will we choose order that erases? Or justice that restores? Because cities are not static, they are stories, written by the people who live in them, and rewritten every day by those who care enough to try. San Diego's story doesn't have to end in contradiction. It can end in courage and begin again with a simple truth. No one belongs on the street. Everyone belongs somewhere. Let that somewhere be here. Let that everyone mean all of us. The question is not, can we change? The question is, will we choose to, and if we do? This city, our city, could become more than beautiful. It could become just. It could become home.